Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show, we'll revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, and now let me officially welcome, for the very first time as co-host, Moosie Drier. Moosie, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you. It's kind of surreal, but yeah.
Well, I know you wanted to, and I wanted to as well, before we go on, just officially, say, thank you to Ike for all the, shows, all the time that we've had for, myself. And I know he was a, good friend of yours for many years beforehand. And, I enjoyed doing the show with him. It's like 3 years now. And, and again, like we said in the last show, when, you guys came on, right away, I had thought of you, and I thought it was a great idea. And so I'm really thrilled that you're getting to do it with me.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, no, Ike's one of those people that I just have respected and admired my entire life, literally. I mean, since I've known him since I was a kid. When you guys contacted me to ask if I could kind of take over for him while he explores some other things, I mean, I thought I was being punked. It's just crazy. Like, it's such an honor. And I would say that no one's going to miss Ike more than I, because I watched this show, this podcast. But we're going to have him. We're going to talk about him, I'm sure, pretty much. And hopefully, and I think we got him to agree to come on back.
Yes, we have some special ones planned that you thought of, which I want to spoil it. But, if it happens, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm honored to be Ike's understudy for it.
Well, like I said last show, it's like, recasting. That's it. Ike was a prima donna. Now the truth can come out.
Yeah. He's anything but that.
Right. No, nothing at all like that.
Right.
So since it's our first, show, and we thought it would be fun to do something just the two of us instead with a guest. And so we decided to do a Forgotten Films. So I'm going to, I gave you first shot because it's your first time in there. I'm going to let you introduce this one.
All right. Well, I picked Autofocus because it's a film about
2002 Autofocus starring Kinnear, Dafoe, Rita Wilson, Maria Bello, and Rodden Liebman. And you can now go take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for laying down the facts.
Yes.
Yeah, Autofocus is it's about an actor, Bob Crane, who was well known for doing a show that was a big part of pop culture. So, and I kind of feel it's a forgotten film because I don't think it didn't really take off at the box office.
No, it didn't. I was surprised that.
And what really stood out about this film for me is that, well, I was interested because, growing up when Hogan's Heroes was, all over the place, I couldn't believe that somehow somebody pitched this idea, like the most brutal POW camp in all of Germany. I mean,
I was going to discuss that, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, how did that pitch go? Let me talk about this atrocity.
But we're going to look at the lighter side of it. Yes.
Yeah. Have I mentioned it's a comedy?
Right.
Well, at least what they do is they definitely mock the villain. A POW camp, huh? Tell us more. And how many? Let me see how many episodes they did of this show. Hang on, I got it. I don't know. They did. Gosh, I thought I had it in front of me, but it went on and on and on, this show, and that part of it surprised me.
It was well over 100, wasn't it? I mean, it was
yeah. And I had it written down. Oh, it lasted 6 seasons and did 168 episodes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So that part always surprised me, but the film's not about that. The film is about actor Bob Crane.
Right.
And I thought, so at the time, I remember when it came out, we're finally going to learn about his mysterious murder. I guess
Murder.
people hopefully have seen this. I don't want to, spoil anything. But anyway,
well, for
so
those who
he,
don't know, Bob Crane was murdered, and was it Arizona?
yes,
And no one, it's still unsolved to this day. So yeah,
yeah,
I was just saying, go ahead. Sorry.
brutally murdered, and we'll go into why or the
Yeah.
speculation of all that. And that's all we knew. Like, and then that story kind of went away, and then it came back years later in this film. And I think that at the time when I read about it coming out, I thought Greg Kinnear on like Talk Soup. I mean, he was good in
Yeah.
Talk Soup, but that's a different thing, it's a hosty kind of thing, and not an actor kind of thing. And I thought Kinnear did a fantastic job in this film. In fact, I think this film, there's a lot about the film I think fell short. It's not the biopic. It's not Walk the Line or, Lincoln by
Yeah.
any means. It's not a masterpiece, but it's definitely worth the watch. And Kinnear really surprised me.
I'm Bob Crane. John Carpenter.
If you like photography, you wouldn't believe this new equipment they sent me. It'll blow your mind.
What will we do with it?
Home movies.
I was very surprised that the movie did not do well, because I remember this being I never saw it before now, so I was happy you picked it. But I remember this movie was talked about in the news all the time when it came out, because it brought back Bob Crane and the unsolved murder. It brought back, facts, so it was being talked about. So I thought in my mind that, it did a lot better than it wound up doing.
Yes. And it's bizarre. And they like you said, there is still no resolution to his murder. And who was the guy? Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, who's the guy that William Dafoe played? Was John there was a
But not the John Carpenter.
not that John Carpenter.
Not John Carpenter, right?
Yeah, and he was acquitted, and I guess it'll probably always go.
But we'll get to that, because the surroundings of him being acquitted is bizarre. Everything about this case is bizarre. Every little detail about this is bizarre. And like you, I never got into Hogan's Heroes. I watch a lot of sitcoms. I watched a lot of shows. I just never got into it, because the same thing, fun-loving Nazis, buffoon Nazis, didn't appeal to me. It's the same reason. And I love Mel Brooks. I totally, love everything about Mel Brooks. When in the History of the World, I love the movie. When they had the Inquisition scene, I cringed, and even today I still have trouble watching that. I know, I'm Jewish. Jews were brutally tortured in the Inquisition. It's not a funny thing.
Absolutely. You don't actually, you don't have to be, and you shouldn't be Jewish to be
Right.
alarmed by this subject matter. And slavery's right up there too for me,
Yeah.
and should be for everybody. But and the fact that both of these subjects are subjects where there are still people alive today who were directly affected by these occurrences, and that just blows my mind too. And for a network to go, okay, tell us more, and then to put 168 episodes are unbelievable.
And the amazing thing to me is that the majority of the Nazis were played by Jewish actors. That's the majority.
Yeah.
That's the most amazing part to me. And I know that the same thing is, like, they wanted to make fun of that. And Mel Brooks says the same thing. It's his power to make fun of it. It's just still mind-boggling to me.
Right. Well, I think it's a rarity, but Mel Brooks is Springtime for Hitler, and
Right.
the producer, and producers.
Right.
That worked. That was
worked for me, yes.
hilarious.
Yes,
you
yes.
know,
It wasn't the same
And-
thing. So
coming from him,
Yeah.
it was a safe thing to laugh with and laugh about. But
Yes.
but Hogan's Heroes. Well, anyway, so I think
Before were you familiar? I mean, you remember? Were you familiar at all with the whole thing, the murder case of Bob Crane, as a kid? I mean, growing up
Oh
then.
yeah. Oh yeah. 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 Well, here in Hollywood, here in LA, I don't really know about nationally, but like in LA, when something goes on like that, with an entertainer,
Right.
it's not just the national news that everybody sees. There's a lot of local coverage
Sure.
in the newspapers and on television, when that happened. And, um, that was just, that was a big, big deal. And then you learn about why or the probabilities of his murder, and well, let me tell you what my take was revisiting Autofocus. Excuse me.
Okay.
I'm gonna get over this cold, I promise. um so the film right out of the gate, like within the first 5 minutes, it's a biopic. You normally like get some backstory.
Right.
This is
Okay.
this is the subject matter, the protagonist growing up, and this was his dad and how he treated him or his mom and all that stuff. In the first 5 minutes, he goes from being an on-air DJ personality to being offered a primetime
Right. Yeah.
television series called Hogan's Heroes, right? This tells me that the filmmakers were like, okay, we're not giving you a chance to be vested in this character. There's no rooting for this guy. You know, there's no justifying
His actions.
yeah, yeah, which is right. You know, a little later on, they do a little something though that confused me. This is one. So they had this sequence. They infused this film with this "How did I get here" sequence where it was dreamy and it was surreal and there was a moment where Bob Crane has this like out of body experience during a take of one of the scenes of Hogan's Heroes. I think it's odd, it's out of place, and I didn't believe it. I don't really believe Bob Crane went through that. I think that's a liberty the film
Right.
took. I think,
I would agree
and
with you on that.
it almost but it almost tries to explain and excuse his inexcusable behavior. And I didn't like, like I'm a churchgoer, and now all I can think about is taping women having sex. The contrast is unfair. I didn't like it. He didn't trip and fall and find himself unethical. I mean, that just came out of him. That's part of who he was, unfortunately. So that part of the film I didn't love. And I think I read about, I think his son came out after this film and said, no, time out. This is so inaccurate. My dad, he was in church. The film depicts him as being a church going,
Right. Yes.
guy, right? So that arc too, now he's secretly video recording him and women having
Right,
sex.
yeah.
So, and his son came out and said something along the lines of, no, as far as I know, my dad's been in church 3 times. My baptism, his own wedding, and his funeral, or something, or like right now, or something. Like he was. So I don't know how accurate the film is. Even with all that said, it's the fact that someone decided to do a film about Bob Crane that drew me to it when it came out years ago, and the performances. You can never go wrong with William Dafoe factor brought me in. I mean, I think
he was fantastic in this.
yeah. Rita Wilson was perfect in this movie.
Mhm.
I thought she was solid. I really like her. I wish she would get her real life husband out of the house and get him working or something. But and then Bello, what's her name? She's so good.
Maria Bello.
Yeah, see, I'm losing my mind. Yes. She was solid. I thought the cast through and through was good. The only thing I was wondering about years ago was Kinnear, Greg Kinnear, toxic guy, and he proved me wrong for sure. And I think it's a forgotten film. I don't if ever like I'm sitting around we're at a dinner and people start talking about movies and old and like biopics, and if this ever comes up, I don't really hear a lot of people talking about it or that had seen it.
Well, until you brought it up, like I said, I remember it very well at the time, but I had totally forgotten about this movie. I read the same thing. I had totally forgotten about myself, and like I remember parts of the Bob Crane thing, but when this movie came out, I saw, wow, this guy was a sleaze. I didn't know all that. But I just remember as a kid, like bits and pieces of it. But then the news came out with the movie, and like I said, I remember this all over the news stations. Like this guy was really disgusting, and I wasn't aware of that as a kid.
Yeah, and
Right, he
the
filmed,
troubling.
like you said, he filmed himself, but it wasn't just that he filmed himself. I don't care if people film stuff. I like, people film can do whatever they want, of course. But he said that they did it with knowledge of the women. I read that most of the women that they spoke to afterwards were shocked that they were on film
Of course.
afterwards.
And
Right.
what else, I'm sorry, I wasn't there, and Bob Crane was way ahead of my time, way, beyond my time. He was even older than me. But and I have no idea, but I don't believe, I believe that, what was he going to say? Oh no, they had, they knew it was happening. No, they didn't. In fact, in the film, you see when William Dafoe pulls out this camera,
Mhm.
he explains it's a home video recorder, and he's actually explaining to Bob Crane what it is. And like, no one had these things. It was like almost like Defoe's character had this prototype. So none of these poor women even knew to like look for a camera or to know what it was, and
Yeah, sure.
it was it was horrible. But that's what they're going to say, that, hey, and he took advantage on so many levels, and he was married. Can you, well, actually, you can't imagine if this were today, because things like that go on,
Sure.
maybe not the exact situation, but there are, with all the social media, everybody has an actual video camera now in their pockets, to
Yes.
see,
It's easier
get
more
abused in
now
an
more than ever,
elevator.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. But just the fact that this film was made, made me want to see it in the first place. Now I get screeners. I don't know, I can't tell if I think this is a movie that I would have just like,
Gone to
made
the
a
theater?
time to go buy a ticket and sit in
Mhm.
the theater, because I actually do enjoy that from time to time. But a lot of times I'll watch films that perhaps I wouldn't do that, but I saw it because I'm in my living room, or
Right. I still
um,
think nothing beats the theater experience, and it's such a different world that people can watch anything at the drop of a hat at home.
100%.
Yeah, but
100%. Yeah, yeah.
but
So this movie was directed by the same man, Paul Schrader, who wrote American No, he also directed American Gigolo and Affliction, but he wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull.
Yeah.
Come on. Those are two of the 5 posters I have up.
Oh, really?
Posters. Yeah. I don't even have posters up of movies I did, which I own the posters, but they're like probably creased and folded and in the rafters of my garage. But like, so he wrote some, but those films, I mean, Taxi Driver especially, but so gritty. I mean, gritty. And
Yeah.
this film, even though the subject was really, something you don't want to bring your kid to, it wasn't even close to gritty. It actually had a real Kellogg's commercial look. It really was, it had a real clean, Technicolor kind of feel, which I think is what made it kind of creepier, that you don't see these dark subjects coming, it's just, it looked good and it looked pretty. It wasn't like shot dark, like,
No, it wasn't. It
way
was not. It did not have the gritty feel to me that you're talking about, that it probably needed a little bit more of. I would say, yeah.
yeah. And what else? Not to switch subjects. We'll stay on autofocus, but it was between this and I wanted to find, for our first forgotten film that you and I do together, I wanted to find a film that that actually was about something that was going on in pop culture for obvious reasons.
Well, I'll
The
say
other
this
one
after.
was,
I'll just quickly, right after I watched this, you suggested this. I went down the Bob Crane rabbit hole. I started watching YouTube video after YouTube video on the
No
murder
kidding.
case.
Oh, no kidding. Well,
Yes,
tell me
after
more,
this.
because I only know like the bullet points. I didn't I revisited this movie recently
Mhm.
for this, but I haven't revisited
Well, there, like you said, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to wait till close to the end, but yeah, the prosecutor there is still convinced to this day that it's John Henry Carpenter. He says there's no doubt that he was acquitted later because there's so many things in this movie they did not do testing. There was blood on John Henry Carpenter's car, and they didn't do testing on it, and so they only did it years later, and by that time it proved inconclusive. But this is after so many years that they said that the blood sample could have corroded already by that time. So
absolutely.
to match his with Bob Crane's murder, and they thought that the murder had to be done by something like a big piece of equipment that it would have fit the camera tripod, that too. But is this funny thing? Bob Crane's son from his first marriage, Robert Crane Jr., he does not think it was John Henry Carpenter. He thinks it was second wife, that she had a lot to gain from it, that she was still, whatever money that he had was going to go to her. He's
Sure.
convinced it was her. So you still have conflicting reports even to this day. So I'm not sure this is going to be solved ever,
Right.
unless someone makes a confession. But
Right.
in my mind, it is John Henry Carpenter. I don't think I would be 90% sure if some point that it's him, but
Yeah.
it's still open.
Well, there was a scene in this film where the two of them finally butt heads and get really personal.
Right.
Like, hey, these women only want to be with you because I'm Bob Crane and they want to be
Mhm.
around me. Oh, are you kidding me? Bob Crane's nobody. Blah, 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 I don't know.
Mhm.
So maybe that was setting us up to suspect Carpenter. And obviously it's open for a lot of possibilities because there were a lot of women who were victims. And then now the second wife, I hadn't heard that, but that's really interesting. But however, whoever it was brutal.
Yeah.
And I'm not a crime expert, but I've watched a lot of Dateline. And usually,
But I played one on TV, right?
yeah, right. It usually means, that's personal. The way he was murdered,
Right.
it was absolutely
Well, because he was
brutal.
cutting. So to explain it more for the context, he was after years and years of doing something together, constantly bringing in, like you just said, John Henry Carpenter got the cast-offs, the seconds of the women. So Bob Crane, in the movie at least, said that was going to stop. He was going to try to turn over a new leaf, change his image because he wasn't working enough in movies because of his reputation. So he wanted to turn over a new leaf. So he was going to cut off John Henry Carpenter. And there goes the gravy train. And that's why it led that this is a possibility.
If we never know, then it'll always be a conversation. But that's actually selfish for families and stuff. It should be resolved. I think the
Yeah.
people.
I mean, first, I don't know who you think that. I mean, like you're talking about, you mentioned there were so many inaccuracies. Their family said that there were inaccuracies in it about what he did and what he didn't do. And I also found it interesting how, even though it wasn't shown, Richard Dawson does not come off looking great in this either. in this movie, and you can tell kind of from Family Feud, like always going around kissing every single person that was there, that this is kind of like he was beyond the player, but this is he did not come off looking great in this. If you're reading context clues, Richard Dawson was probably engaged in some of the same type behavior. Looking at this,
He may have been engaged in the behavior. He may have just been an enabler. I have no idea. I want to stay liking him. I want to remember the good memories.
I still like him. I still think he was great. I don't think I don't think it was to the degree that Bob Crane did anything. Well, how was Richard Dawson with you? Now that you said you worked with him for years.
Oh, he was great. I remember him very well. He was great. And then I Family Feud was on in my family's household a lot, and I'm not necessarily a full-on germaphobe or anything, but I'm somewhere where what are you doing kissing everybody on the lips? I remember thinking that. Like, I think he was trying to be endearing and personal and
Right.
personable, and That was always odd,
Yeah.
you know, because it was like if I had my family on there, now I don't have a daughter, I have a son, but if I had a daughter and I had a family on Family Feud and she's young and
Yeah.
well, like, don't kiss my daughter on the lips.
Right.
I know that's not what you asked, but that's just
No, that's how I would
in
feel
my
the
mind.
same way as well. You're just standing there watching him kiss your wife, kiss your daughter.
Yeah. But I don't, I think I definitely agree with you. I think the Richard Dawson didn't come off in a good light in this film. And, I don't know, I think most of Hollywood was, and maybe a lot of it still is, unfortunately, kind of a boys club, and,
No,
when people achieve fame and success, they feel entitled somehow. They give into that and they just feel entitled, And I have a feeling that sure he may have been, right
well,
up in
I,
there,
I
and
was going to
that's
ask
not
you
an
about this.
excuse.
No, but
What's
I was
that?
going to ask you about what you just put up. Well, I had a couple of questions for you after watching this too. Well, first of all, I was just curious. Coming out of this, who do you think did it?
Um, if I had to lay down a bet, I would think it's somebody who we don't know, that like a husband, boyfriend, brother of somebody he videotaped having sex. I
You
don't know
think
why
that?
yeah, and of
Well, I can
course I
see
can be
that too.
wrong. What do I know?
Right.
Oh wait, I should know. I watch a lot of Dateline. No, I have a feeling it's a little more random than the obvious, either second wife or Carpenter. Although I don't, I'll stand by that answer. I think it's
Okay.
somebody's. Yeah. Um.
Well, they also said there was a mob connection possible too. I,
Yeah, that's right.
that Bob Crane was supposed to do, and it was alluded to in this film a little bit. That was one of the things I watched furthermore on YouTube. That he was actually supposed to do a porno for himself, and there was a mob guy involved, and then he backed out, and they had a lot of money riding on this. That was one
Right.
of the theories, one of the many theories there. So,
Well, that's a possibility, of
so
course. I think Carpenter, it's too easy, but however, who's to say that Carpenter didn't murder him? It's interesting. So the reason why I'm going with more of a random, because there were so many women, like a rotating door, that were in one of these
right.
women may have come home and like confessed and was bawling, and I found out I was videotaped. What did this happen? And I could be random. Um, I am no conspiracy theorist by any stretch. The world is round.
Yeah.
It's not flat. Like, give me the facts. I'm not trying to make stuff up or anything like that. I never go down that road. However, you also want to keep an open mind to certain things. This is sort of off subject, but not really. So, where I live, when you get off the freeway here in LA off the 405, and you get off the Mulholland Drive, where I get off if I'm coming from the south, for many years,
You sound like the Californians now.
there was, I know, on SNL, for many years, every single day there was a fresh batch of beautiful flowers off the side of the road before you turn onto Mulholland from the off ramp on the 405, and that's where Ennis or Enos Cosby, Bill Cosby's son, was murdered, right? And Cosby, I guess, would have flowers for years. Like I couldn't believe it. Like all these, it was beautiful, and what a horrible, horrible situation. Of course, that was never solved. That was random. That had a rumor of Russian mobsters. That had a rumor of valley gangs just out, for a gang initiation to kill. And I actually haven't pulled that up in a long time, and I don't know what any other speculation is. But then years later, what came out about Bill Cosby?
Right.
And it's just speculation, but you never know. Like that could have been some horrible. I mean, poor Ennis Cosby.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, he didn't deserve that. But like, once all that came out about Bill Cosby, it's sort of Bob Crane-ish. Like somebody just kind of went, I'm gonna get him,
Right. I can
and
see that.
I don't know how that went down.
Well, here's one of the things so going back to like one of the reviews that I read, there was actually more than one, said it exposes the seedy side of Hollywood. So I don't know if this is a couple of things. One, I don't think this is necessarily confined to Hollywood. I mean, I went to college with a guy that would video his exploits, and like supposedly again that they all knew. I don't know if they did or not, but here we go. If this exposed the seedy side of Hollywood to you, I don't know where you've been. you
Right.
that there's
Right.
other that this is the thing that Hollywood has a seedy side. So
Right.
so this is what I wanted to ask you specifically now. So growing up now, and you don't have to answer this, we can cut this out later. Have you heard, not necessarily Robert Crane, of parties like this that Robert Crane attended? Have you been aware of these type of parties that just, like just free for all basically?
Yes.
That
Well, they're not necessarily like this. Actually, what I have known is I've known of one or two casting directors
mhm,
who have done some seedy things.
right,
Um, nothing forcible that I know of.
right,
But hey, today I've got nothing going on. I think I'll just send this is so horrible to me. I'll send out a fake casting call today for girls in bathing suits for something.
right. Yeah. So
Um
I mean,
as far as secretly being recorded,
well, I'm not saying even that. I'm saying that there are parties that you know what's going to happen at a party, because Bob Crane went to several of those. That this is the only purpose for this party. He said you heard of.
right.
This is
Right. Yeah, I guess listen, Hollywood has its seedy
sure,
portions today, yesterday, and it always has.
right.
So that's no question. But no, I don't really know of anything too crazy like this. I'm
Okay.
fortunate that I haven't run in those circles.
Right.
I do know other actors and directors, and sure, some celebrities here and there. But for the most part in my life, I'm not, I don't hang out with,
Right.
yeah. Um, so, but you bring up a great point, because it's just like former child actors, what a stigma, about, wow, what are they, what pharmacy are they holding up now? They hold up a liquor store.
Mhm.
A lot of former child actors, get to a place where they make the news for getting in trouble with the law or drug abuse or alcohol
Right.
abuse. Well, you don't hear about all of the non-child actors in the world. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's a human thing, but I think that they are under a scope. So it's kind of the same thing with the Hollywood scandal stuff, like the Bob Crane. There are seedy car mechanics, plumbers, and real
Everywhere.
estate.
Right. Everywhere.
I mean, yeah, there are. This is just more interesting because everyone knows who he is. By the way,
Exactly. Yes.
this guy right here, I pulled up this photo.
Yes.
I saw this movie when it originally came out, and then I just saw this recently to revisit for this, and that's Jeff Harlan. I forgot that he was in this film, or didn't realize. He is a good friend of mine, a lovely, lovely human being, and that's why I picked this picture to be up for a little while. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to make you watch this. I'm going to send you a link to this. Yeah, hey, if Jeff, if you're watching this, I didn't mean to go from seedy Hollywood people to your photo, by the way. Nothing to do with the other. Yeah, I think that's what's intriguing about this story is it's the same thing. Like, Elvis, Elvis had that side, and so did, what Johnny Cash and all these people, that's why biopics sell. That's why they go after these scripts for people, like if it was just, everything was just, you haven't seen many Dolly Parton biopics is because she's a beautiful soul, human being. She doesn't do anything wrong. She's amazing, So you see the biopic of the Bob
you
Cranes.
like you just said too, though. It's there are mechanics that do this type of stuff. There are doctors, but they're not the star of a sitcom that millions of people watch. So that's the difference.
Yeah, that's the difference. And the other difference is that perhaps there aren't women flocking towards the mechanic as well as, somehow, women who get stars in their eyes about celebrities and stuff. And Bob Crane
you mentioned
took advantage of
Bill
that.
Cosby before, and I remember how not just shocked, but just a sense of disappointment, like real severe disappointment that it was Bill Cosby, like this America's dad figure that just this
Of all
terrible,
people, like he was safe. He was like the grandfather who's gonna, tell you a story with the cardigan sweater and give you the Werther's original and, and a glass of milk and go take us, go to sleep,
Right.
Gosh, well that I didn't mean it.
Don't take any drinks, right?
Yeah. Don't drink the milk. That's beyond disappointing, of course. And again, somebody I think who took advantage of their big success early on, because a lot of stuff happened early on in Bill Cosby's career.
Sure.
And but like let's not forget that there are a lot of good people who happen to have become famous and they're talented who would never ever do that. Like, I don't want to focus on all the Hollywood. It's just you go to crap when that's what the film was trying to say was Bob Crane. I'm a churchgoer every day. I got a family man, this and that. I'm super squeaky clean. There's one scene with him and Rita Wilson talking about, should I do this? What it's about, whatever it's about, what it is, the POW camp and all that stuff. And then sure enough, she was saying no. And then she's like, wait a minute. I read it like in another scene soon after that. And then off he goes. But like, I don't know. It's just, I tend to believe the son who's like, he was not going to church all the time. Because I think, you take liberties when you write scripts and this was like, you didn't just want to go, here you go, here's an actor, he's sleazy. No, you wanted to see some arc where he went from wholesomeness to Hollywood corrupted him into this,
Yeah, well, that's right. The son basically said that he was recording himself doing things well before this all came to light.
Okay. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That he was that he had started getting, well before the sitcom started as well. He was into that.
Right. And then so he did dinner theater after, was it before? It was after Hogan's
after Hogan's Heroes, right?
Yeah, he was doing dinner theater. His career didn't take off the way he wanted it to, and he wanted to make something out of this porn industry.
Right.
Because so it's so crazy. It's so crazy. I remember at the time when like it was somewhat affordable to have a VCR in your home. And then, you got a camera, you could shoot something and watch it right away, right after you. It doesn't have to be processed and all that stuff. And on a very honest level, a lot of us would get that, like, hey, Bobby's dad has a camera. We'd go like pretend to do scenes. We'd shoot little mini movies, little in the backyard and whatever, all that. And that was exciting to be able to get that instant, right now, anybody young who's watching this probably doesn't even know what Hogan's Heroes is or Bob Crane. However, that, it's like, what are they talking about? We could just hear, I'm shooting everything.
No, I think people watching this do know. I think people watching, we focus on that age range that they do know. I'm sure.
Oh, good. But and he just got caught up in that, like how crazy this technology is. And, he was a sex addict.
I remember when my dad bought us the first VCR, we were spellbound. We were like all amazed, like, we was like, we all gathered around to watch it record a program to test it out later. So.
Yeah. I did. I bought one. I was I think about 15 or 16. It was like $800 or something. At that time,
Mhm.
a lot of money, to get,
Yes, of
and
course.
yeah. And I remember recording some shows, and I'm like, so I can watch this same episode I recorded anytime I want. Wow, like it was a big deal.
Sure.
But yeah, and it's probably part of it. Part of the time, like you didn't have access to these things. Bob Crane and Carpenter, they didn't grow up with this
Yeah.
ability to do this stuff. So when it came about, it was exciting. What they should have done is something else with their cameras and not, yeah.
Take some family movies.
Yeah. I mean, one day your daughter's going to be grown up.
Right.
Treat women the way you would your
Yeah.
your
Oh, agreed. Agreed. 100%. Yes.
yeah.
So,
But let me ask you this.
yes.
Regardless of, that there's probably some inaccuracies in the storytelling, and some of the scenes are a little bit cringeworthy, but not too bad, not too gritty.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Do you recommend Autofocus as a watch?
Yeah, I definitely do. I thought, like I said, I knew cursory level about the whole Bob Crane thing, and it definitely gets you interested. Like I said, I went over and started doing a deep dive on the murder thing. I watched. I would say I watched 3 to 4 hours of documentary, different things on YouTube afterwards on the Bob Crane murder, just to started, because I was definitely intrigued.
Cool.
I wanted to find out more. And I started not just watching YouTube, I started reading articles on it too. So I feel like I do know, I think people will definitely get a good, I think this is a movie worth watching. I'm shocked. I'm still shocked that it did not do as well as I thought it did. Or I thought it did much better. I thought it deserved to do better because it's a great cast and an interesting topic for sure. So you saw it before now. So going back to visit it. So that's your question. How is it going back? Is it as good as you remembered or not? Basically.
I think it was about the same. It opens up a water cooler conversation about what, it's kind of like the OJ thing. Although I don't know too many people who argue that an OJ didn't do it. You know what I mean? But it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's one of those things we might all die never really knowing, so I think it opens conversation. I think it's not necessarily for everybody because I have to step out of my body and go, well, I care because I remember Hogan's Heroes. Now, I didn't watch Hogan's Heroes much. I got to be honest with you. It was just a part of growing up. I knew, it had 7 channels and it was on one of them. And I knew for sure who Bob Crane was, but I think it's a watch. I don't think it was a waste of time. I think it's right up there because there's, it's a conspiracy ridden film, and it's a true story about somebody who was famous. And on the top of that list, it's just a Kinnear, William Dafoe.
Yeah, great cast.
Rita Wilson. And a couple other people in it too. It was like, oh wow, that I didn't remember from the first time. And it was directed well, and I suggest people watch it.
What do you you give it on the scale of 1 to 10?
I'm gonna give it I'll give it a strong 7, knocking on the door of 8.
I'm with you. I also right around that 7 level. I thought it was interesting enough. I don't think it's a great movie. I thought it was a very good movie. I'm not sure I would watch it a second time, but I thought it was very good to watch at least once.
It certainly falls under the category of forgotten films.
Yes,
I know people don't talk about Autofocus, and there's another one, maybe a little less forgotten, that I was going to pick.
No, let's save it. Save it.
Okay. All right.
Save it. We'll bring that out in the future. So there. I got to start thinking of the next one for my turn, but I got to match this.
Right.
So let us know in the comments what you guys thought. Let us know if you liked it, didn't like it, what your thoughts were, who you think killed Bob Crane. If you have some info, let us know all of that. And again,
go take a look. It's sorry, John. It's real easy to find.
Yes.
Roku or Fire TV or whatever. You just
could-
do a search. It's pretty easy to find. Yeah.
And before we go, just once again, thank you again to Ike Eisenman for doing everything. And again, special thanks and welcome to Moosie Drier. So
Thank you. Thank you,
this has
Jonathan.
been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.